Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Bridge Excellence International webinar. My name is Tiffany Bourne, and I'll be your host this evening. So, this evening's session is all about exploring careers in the international work setting and how you can leverage your skills, knowledge, and experience for success. Today, we'll be taking a closer look at the International Civil Service, its structure, expectations, and what it takes to thrive in this unique career path. But to get us started, we're just gonna make the mood just a bit warmer. And can you just put in the chat, where in the world are you joining us from? Without saying the name of the country, you can provide the name of one iconic place, person, food, or thing that your country is known for. So we have one response so far. I see there are 10 participants online. Don't be shy. What's one thing that your country is famous for? We'll give you another 15 to 20 seconds. Okay, so we have three responses so far. I'll wait until we have about five responses. One more person. Okay, we can go ahead. So, can we bring up the responses, Tasman? Okay, we'll move on. So it is a pleasure to be here with you and to welcome the founder of Bridge Excellence International, Miss Paulette Lewis, as well as our distinguished presenter, Mr. Filip Borkowy. So just to give a brief background about Paulette, she is a lifelong learner with over 30 years of experience in the social and humanitarian sectors. She is a certified coach by profession, as well as a human resources advisor, and is the founder and leader of Bridge Excellence International, which is a human resources advisory and coaching firm focused on individual and organizational development. Please join me in welcoming the organizer and face behind these webinar series, Ms. Paulette Lewis. Allow me to also introduce the presenter for today's session, Filip Borkowy. Filip is a seasoned human resources professional and a national of Barbados, Poland, and the United Kingdom. He currently serves as advisor to the Director of Human Resources and Administration at the Caribbean Development Bank, headquartered in Barbados. Filip has a bachelor's degree with honors in social sciences from the University College London, a graduate diploma in law from the College of Law of England and Wales, UK, and a master's degree in industrial and employment relations from the University of Turin. He is also a certified internal workplace mediator. Filip began his career as an administrative officer in the Royal Courts of Justice in London. In 2008, he joined the International Civil Service and has since served in the Human Resources function with the United Nations Secretariat, the International Renewable Energy Agency, the International Criminal Court, the Organization for the Prohibition of Chemical Weapons, and the United Nations World Food Programme. His career has taken him across Europe, the Middle East, and the Caribbean. In addition to his international civil servant experience, he has also served as a human resources director in the Caribbean offshore medical education sector at Ross University and the American University of Integrative Sciences. Philip is passionate about youth employment and especially about highlighting career pathways into the international civil service for citizens of the Caribbean and the wider global South. Please join me in welcoming Filip Borkowy. Over to you, Philip.
Hi, everybody. Good evening. I'm just going to share my slides so we can get started. All right, I'm hoping that you are able to see. So this presentation, thanks so much for the introduction, Tiffany. And it's a real pleasure to be here tonight with all of you. So this presentation is an introduction to the possible opportunities that lay out there for all of us to work in international organizations. I've taken advantage of these opportunities and I've been really, really lucky along the way. And I hope that this presentation will entice you to test the waters and also to hopefully be similarly as lucky. I learned a few things along the way, which I wish others had taught me, and I will share some of these things now. The biggest takeaway that I want to start off with is by saying that being a Caribbean national, being a West Indian, holding a West Indian passport often places you at an advantage when applying to serve in the international civil service all around the world. And I will explain why shortly. This is an introduction to the topic. So we're not going to cover very detailed application tips and interview tips or how to take a test. All of that is available elsewhere. I will be sharing information on that to those of you who registered for this webinar at the end. And I just hope that this will be a kind of a flavor of what's to come and of what's out there. So we'll talk a little bit about what are public international organizations, which is where the civil service is, an international civil service. We'll talk about regional organizations, the more global international organizations, which I call of those of a universal character. And then we'll get into why being a West Indian is advantageous potentially to employment in many international organizations. We'll tell you which international organizations you're potentially eligible to serve in, and I'll tell you a little bit about the staffing structures because I believe knowledge is power when it comes to applying and getting a chance. We'll talk about is the international civil service a career, and then I'll give you some more tips at the end. And then happy to take any questions. Is that okay? Can I continue, Tiffany?
Before you continue, actually, yes, you can go ahead, Philip.
All right.
We'll discuss it
Thanks.
after.
Thanks, Tiffany. All right. So a little bit about me and my own journey. I'm originally from Poland in Eastern Europe, but I grew up in London, England. 18 years ago, I was at law school and I undertook a paid internship at the United Nations World Food Programme in Rome, Italy. And during this time, this is where I met the founder of Bridge Excellence, of this initiative, Miss Paulette Lewis, who was a colleague at the World Food Programme. I remember being invited to Paulette's house for lunch, and I saw all sorts of really beautiful furniture and furnishings which Paulette had gathered from her many, many years of international service. This reconfirmed my interest in working around the world, and I'll forever be grateful to Paulette. So thank you, Paulette. After my internship, I was offered a job at the United Nations Secretariat, which is in Geneva, Switzerland, and I served there for 3 years. I then moved to the right of the map to Abu Dhabi in the United Arab Emirates to help set up a new international organization called the International Renewable Energy Agency. I then had the opportunity to serve as a remote consultant working for the International Trade Center, which, although it was based in Switzerland, I was able to do my work from St. Martin in the Eastern Caribbean, Northeastern Caribbean. After some time, I joined the International Criminal Court, which was another move to the Netherlands, to a city called The Hague, before I moved back to St. Martin actually to take a private sector role. This job then moved to Barbados and I moved with it. And after some time, I moved to the Netherlands again to serve at the Organization for the Prohibition of Chemical Weapons. My last stop was back here in Barbados, where I served with United Nations volunteers, again as a remote consultant for the World Food Program. And currently, I am at the Caribbean Development Bank, which is headquartered here in beautiful Barbados. So now the normal disclaimer that I have to give is that I do serve as advisor to the Director of Human Resources at the CDB, at the Caribbean Development Bank, but I'm here in my personal capacity. So anything I say does not represent the views of my employer, but these are my own personal views. All right. I'm going to move on if that's okay, Tiffany.
Before you move on, Philip, can we
Sure.
share a brief video on Bridge Excellence
Please,
International?
let's do that.
Over to you, Tasman.
To be your catalyst for transformation. We value people first. Our mission, to make you a future-forward leader. Our aim, to be your catalyst for transformation. We value people first. The success of any business depends on how well positioned the employees are. We value excellence. Excellence in delivering exceptional quality, going above and beyond to exceed your expectations. By leveraging our trusted partnerships and making investments in people like you. Investments in our range of services like coaching and personality assessments to help with your job, relationships, enhancing your career. Also, human resources advisory work, including staff engagement, leadership, and learning development. Make that step today towards your future for tomorrow and reach out to our team. We will be happy to show you the Bridge Excellence way.
Thank you so much. And that's just a brief overview of the services that Bridge Excellence International offers to persons. And before we continue with Philip's presentation, we're going to be sharing a short survey in the chat that we're asking you to complete during the presentation or maybe at the end. Back over to you, Philip.
Sure. Thank you so much. All right, let's talk about what are international organizations, and specifically what are public international organizations, because that's all I know about. I mean, there are lots of international organizations. I mean, KFC is an international organization, if you think about it, but we're here to talk about public international organizations. And a PIO or an IO, it's an institution formed by member countries under a treaty to achieve common goals. So by member countries, we mean, the states of the world. And by treaty, I mean it's like almost like a contract between countries. And the very, very varied common goals that international organizations might be set up for. And the other important factor is governed by international law. What does that mean for the West Indian job seeker? Firstly, it means that international organizations, or most of them, they can hire nationals into of their member states into any office location. So we're really not really concerned about work permits. We're not concerned about visas. We're not concerned about any of that when we're talking about recruitment at international organizations. The other good thing is that many public international organizations have specific nationality recruitment targets so that their staffing reflects the diversity of their membership. And this can often favor small island developing states like those in the Caribbean. I'm going to show you a bit more about that later. The rewards packages, meaning the salary, the benefits, the post-employment pensions. They are on par with typically the wealthiest member state in an international organization. It's a rule of thumb, but I think it holds quite true. So if you have an organization, for example, of which the United States of America is a member, typically salaries are on par with those experienced in the civil service of the USA. Or if you're talking about a Caribbean regional organization, you can imagine the most wealthy Caribbean state, and that will be kind of similar to what the rewards packages are in those international organizations. Conversely, if you're just applying for a locally recruited role, meaning a role that's reserved for the nationals of the country that you're in or that you want to stay in, then the pay is typically amongst the best employers in that country. So the United Nations office in Barbados, for example, would look to be paying the local staff at the competitive rates for Barbados. Working at international organizations is not just about, it's not sort of about your pay packet, but it's a opportunity to make a meaningful contribution to pressing and important regional international needs, such as climate change, such as combating hunger, which is what I did with Paulette at World Food Programme, such as peacekeeping, which I was able to contribute to at the UN Secretariat, promoting renewable energy, boosting trade, prosecuting the most heinous of war crimes, eliminating weapons of mass destruction, and financing development. These are some of the mandates that I've been able to contribute to, although not directly because I'm not an expert in any of these areas, but as a human resources officer supporting my colleagues in substantive work in these international organizations. Am I okay to move on, Tiffany? You're muted.
Thank you. I have a question for you, Philip.
Sure.
You speak about these public international organizations, and you're being specific to Caribbean participants in this webinar. Can you tell us what international employers offer the best opportunities for the Caribbean as well as other nationalities?
Sure. So what we're going to talk about a little bit later is which institutions are there not enough Caribbean nationals by their own standards, right? It sounds kind of strange if you're coming at this from, if you've never kind of experienced international organizations before, but public international organizations are allowed to and actually are legally required to recruit on a kind of quota basis in many cases, where they have to have a number of Jamaicans working there. They have to have a number of Polish people working there. They have to have a number of Barbadians working at the international organization in order to ensure that its staffing reflects the diversity of the membership. So what we're going to do is going to find out later on a couple of slides which organizations are currently understaffed by certain nationalities in this amongst the participants right here. So thanks for your question, and we're going to answer it a little bit later.
Sure. Thank you, Philip.
All right. Okay, so there are a number of types of international organizations, and the first ones I want to tell you about are the regional ones, and you're going to be really, really familiar with some of these. But these are some of the examples of international organizations in our region of the Caribbean. So we have the CARICOM Secretariat in Guyana, we have CARDI, we have the Inter-American Development Bank, which is in Washington, D.C., the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank in St. Kitts, the OECS in St. Lucia, CRFM is in Belize, SEDIMA in Barbados, Pan American Health Organization, again in Washington, D.C., the Development Bank of Latin America and the Caribbean, based in Venezuela, but latterly a lot of its staff is in Panama. So even within our region, there are a lot of international organizations with staffing needs. So what's a region really depends on how it's been defined. You can see a lot of these organizations that begin with C for Caribbean. They'll be kind of more defined by the Caribbean basin and those member states, but also you might have Latin America and the Caribbean, such as CAF Bank. CAF Bank has a wider membership, which includes not only a number of states in the Caribbean, but also Latin America. And then you've got the Organization of American States at the top there, which is a member organization of every state in North America, North and South America, sorry, in both Americas. So international organizations of a universal character. These are the international organizations of which almost every country in the world is either a member or every country in the world can potentially become a member. So these are your, well, I'm going to give you some examples in a minute, but I wondered if anybody is able to tell me which is the only international organization of a universal character that's based in the Caribbean. Is it possible to open the chat? So colleagues, please feel free to type if you know the answer. I'll give you a clue. It's in Jamaica. I'll give you another clue.
Yeah.
It's at 14 to 20 Port Royal Street in Kingston, Jamaica. So if anybody knows where that is where the only public international organization of a universal character in the Caribbean is based. Do we have any answers in the chat? Otherwise, I'll just give it
Not
away.
seeing any.
All right, I'll tell you. It's called the International
Oh, one
Seabed
person
Authority,
responded. Yeah.
and that is its logo right there. Okay, so we are very proud to have one public international organization of universal character based in the Caribbean. Most of the others are elsewhere. But before I show you the other where the others are, I'll give you I'll tell you about some West Indian led public international organizations. If anybody knows this logo, this is the United Nations Framework on Climate Change. It's led by Simon Steele of Grenada. This is the International Trade Center in Geneva, Switzerland, where I worked for a time, and it's led by Pamela Coke Hamilton of Jamaica. The United Nations University, it's headquartered in Tokyo, Japan, and its chancellor is Barbados' own very own Professor Hilary Beckles. The IMF Deputy Executive Director is Nigel Clark of Jamaica. And this little logo on the left-hand side, that's the International Criminal Court. And that was conceived by a Tobagonian, A.N.R. Robinson of Trinidad and Tobago. He proposed the creation of an international criminal court in the last century, and it's come to be. So our international organizations, the most famous one is probably the United Nations. That's the logo there. By the way, the Chief of Staff of the United Nations Secretariat is another Bajan called Selwyn Hart. So we have representation there. And you're going to see a lot of logos coming up and a lot of potential places in which you can serve and organizations which you can serve along the way. So these are the Geneva-based organizations in Geneva, Switzerland. The ILO, the World Meteorological Organization, the World Trade Organization, the High Commissioner for Refugees. IMO is based in London, England, on the banks of the River Thames because it's the International Maritime Organization. The World Bank Group is in Washington, D.C., same as the IMF. The International Civil Aviation Organization is in Montreal, Canada. The three food-based organizations, the International Fund for Agricultural Development, the Food and Agriculture Organization, and the World Food Programme are based in Rome, Italy. UNDP, UN Women, UNFPA, UNICEF, you may have heard some of these acronyms. These are organizations headquartered in New York City in the United States of America. The IEA is in the news a lot now because they're looking at, nuclear weapons and production of nuclear sites. They're based in Vienna, Austria. The OPCW and the International Court of Justice are in The Hague. UNESCO is in Paris, France. The World Tourism Organization is in Madrid, Spain, with a very important office in Saudi Arabia. IRENA, International Renewable Energy Agency, I mentioned it earlier. That's in Abu Dhabi in the United Arab Emirates. And finally, UN Habitat and United Nations Environment Programme are based in Nairobi, Kenya, in Eastern Africa. These are just the headquarters of these agencies. Not everybody works at headquarters. They have country offices and regional offices all around the world. And what I'm here to tell you today is that Caribbean nationals are eligible to work in any of these organizations of which your country is a member. And your country is a member of most of these organizations that are displayed on this slide.
Before you go on, Philip,
Sure.
I have a question. So you've mentioned all of these international organizations where we have a presence from the Caribbean. Can you give us some steps, or what are some steps to relocating and working abroad
Mhm.
as a Caribbean citizen?
Thank you. That's a really great question, Tiffany. And the good news is that if you're working for one of these public international organizations, all the relocation is taken care of for you. So if you're successful in securing a position, they're going to relocate you. They're going to take care of your work permit and your visa. They're going to relocate your family if you have any that you want to bring with you, if you can. They're going to give you financial support for relocating. So it's not a case that I'm suggesting that anybody move to any of these destinations and start to look for a role there. It's that vacancies are open, vacancies are available, and should you qualify, and should you make it, you'll be taken care of. So we're not looking at work permits. We're not worrying about these things at this time. But great question.
I have one more question before you go.
Sure.
Well, you speak about the opportunities about working at these international organizations, but what would you consider to be the biggest challenges in applying for work at these organizations?
Yeah. Thanks, Tiffany. Well, I wouldn't like to sugarcoat it. Competition is fierce, right? If I'm telling you that everybody in the world can apply to work in these organizations, that means everybody in the world is going to be applying. And typically in the human resources departments of international organizations, we do receive hundreds, if not thousands, of applications per vacancy. So it's a case of perseverance. It's a case of making sure that you continue to apply for jobs that you are qualified for, and don't really waste time applying jobs that you know that you're not qualified for. If you don't have that required degree that is needed for a particular vacancy, then that's probably not the one to go for. But do apply to everything that you see that you're qualified for, and eventually trust me from someone who's gone through it many, many times, you will get that call for a written test or for an interview, and you'll be able to demonstrate your candidacy for the role. So perseverance, I think, is the main one. Have a hard skin or a tough skin to be able to take a little bit of rejection along the way. I think I've been rejected from hundreds and hundreds of applications that I've made, but I did make it through in the end, and I'm living proof.
Thanks so much for that advice and for those tips, Philip.
All right. Let's move on. I want to show you this slide because just before the presentation, I checked the attendee list of this webinar, and I cross-referenced it against the global international organizations which publish the geographic diversity figures. So as you can see, Caribbean nationals are either non-represented or underrepresented in a number of public international organizations. And these organizations are legally obliged to address this. So unlike private companies, international organizations can and they do practice positive discrimination in favor of unrepresented or underrepresented nationalities. This means that you will have a distinct advantage when applying for jobs as a national of an unrepresented or an underrepresented member state. And what does that mean in practice? Coming from a HR professional, how does it look? It means that when we do get those hundreds or sometimes thousands of applications for a particular role, we're looking specifically at the profiles of Bayesians or Belizeans or Dominicans, depending on which organization and depending on which where the numbers are low. And we're really taking extra scrutiny of these applications to ensure that qualified candidates from un or non-represented countries are getting a look. So not all organizations report the countries in which they are lacking nationals in their secretariats, but these are some of them. And you can find more about this in an article that I've put on my LinkedIn called Leveraging Your Diversity for Success. And you can just go to my LinkedIn afterwards. I'm sure we'll share the link to get more information. But this is just a representative snapshot of those persons who registered to this webinar, and they told us where they're from. These are where you may be able to find extra success depending on your nationality.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Thank you for that, Philip. We have a question from one of the participants or attendees, which I find to be very interesting.
Perfect.
And here's a question. Many UN agencies and international organizations publicly acknowledge that nationals from small island developing states, including the Caribbean, are underrepresented within their workforce. From
Mhm.
a practical standpoint, how can candidates from these regions best leverage this fact when applying for international opportunities?
Thanks. Great question. So obviously, where you're from, you can't really help it, right? You're either from this country or you're not. But it's not just your nationality, which counts for applying to international organizations, but also that you're the best qualified candidate and you do the best job at test and at interview. So one thing I would suggest those starting out to consider is to look at the careers websites of the international organizations that you might be interested in, or all of them if you're interested in all of them, and just have a look at some of the vacancies, even though you might not yet qualify. So if you've got a degree in economics and you see a mid-career vacancy for an economist, you might not be qualified for that now, but look at the vacancy and see exactly what they're asking for. Look at the desired requirements, not only the minimum requirements, to get yourself up there and try to work towards um, making your profile one that ticks all the boxes in a couple of years. Um, that's something that I would definitely consider. Experience matters a lot, and to the extent that you can see what the experience requirements are in a vacancy announcement, have a look at those and see what can I do now, even in my own country, to get the kind of experience to get me towards where I need to be. Outside of the formal experience and qualification circles, there are always skills which you can add, which will help you. In many organizations, a second language skill is helpful, although it's by no means definitive. For example, where I work at the CDB, we only work in English really, but many organizations, they prize language skills, particularly French, Spanish, Chinese, and to some degree Arabic and Russian as well, particularly. But these are some of the things that you can do to elevate yourself, looking towards the future.
Thank you
All
for
right.
that response, Philip. I think it was very well addressed.
Thanks, Tiffany. We'll move on to which organizations can I serve in, right? So I don't know which organization my country might be a member of. And this diagram on the left shows all the sheer number of overlapping memberships of countries in international organizations. So if you can find your flag there, I think most of the Caribbean flags are on the bottom right, where you can see that a number of states are in the OECS, represented by Eastern Caribbean Dollar, and they're also in CARICOM, where some organizations are in CARICOM but not in OCS. All of our countries, the Caribbean, are members of the United Nations, which is the huge blue box filling the screen. Most of them are members of the OAS. So that just shows you that many international organizations are there waiting for you, depending on which of your countries are members. Now, one tool that I found very useful is a tool called the CIA World Factbook. And we'll send a link about the CIA World Factbook later, but you can also just Google it. It's a publicly available resource. And it shows the main international organizations of which a country is a member. So if you go to CIA World Factbook, look up, for example, Belize, get the drop down to Belize and go down to international organization participation. You're going to get a word salad of acronyms of all these international organizations of which Belize is a member. I've put up the World Factbook entry for Jamaica, and that just shows you probably about 30 to 40 international organizations that Jamaica is a member of. And the CIA World Factbook is not comprehensive, but it's a really good start. After you found out which international organizations your country of nationality is a member of, you need to go to their websites, because being international organizations, being public, they tend to promote all their vacancies online, and they're open under what's called strict procurement for persons to apply to. And you can see it on the careers pages. Now, if you want to look at all the careers websites of every international organization to which your country belongs to see if there's something out there for you, you can do that. It takes a long time, and that is the foolproof way to catch all the opportunities out there. But there are some aggregators as well, and we'll share the links to the aggregators afterwards. Some of the more famous one is UN Jobs, unjoblist.org. There are companies like Impact Pool and DevX that repost vacancies in public international organizations that you can look at too. Am I good to move on, Tiffany?
I have a question before you move on.
Sure.
There seems to be an overwhelming list of international organizations, and I could imagine how competitive the job market would be to fill roles at these international organizations. So my question to you is, what advice would you give to those who want to stand out to get an international job when they're applying for an international job?
Yeah, so I mean, I mentioned it before about checking out what are the kind of desired attributes that a vacancy might ask for and trying to meet those. But in the moment, if you're trying to apply in the moment, you say, how do I make my application good right here and right now? I think one of the first things I say, and you would notice as a HR professional as well, that make sure that your application is free of any mistakes. A typo here, a typo there, when you're faced with that stiff competition like that, that can really make a difference because it kind of maybe unfairly, but discloses that maybe you didn't pay enough attention to detail in this case, and that might reflect in your work. Try to keep cover letters to one page or to half a page, but do make sure you write something for your cover letter, because the opposite is we very often get applications with no cover letter, and that kind of shows us that maybe the motivation is not there for persons that are looking to apply to the role. The cover letter should be targeted towards the role. So if it's a cover letter that you're recycling from previous roles, it's probably not specific enough to grab the hiring manager's attention, right? So those are some of the tips about what you could do right now rather than the previous tips I gave, which is about looking towards the future.
Thank you so much for that, Philip.
All right. Thanks to you, Tiffany. I'm going to move on to tell you something more about this, like the staffing structures of international organizations, because knowledge is power. And if you know a little bit about how organizations are structured, this may help you in your journey. So the first thing is budgets. Most international organizations are paid for by contributions from the member states. Everybody's putting in a certain amount of money that has been agreed, and the organization spends its budgets. I think one exception to that are the international financial institutions like the development banks, which have their own funds, and proceeds from those funds is used for the administrative budget. But still, we still have this concept of core budgets and extra budgetary funds, so core and non-core. So core is the posts that are established in the budget that will go on and on, right? Typically, your director of human resources, your legal officers will be part of the core of the organization, and those are slightly more stable jobs. But there's also project-funded jobs called non-core. So, for example, if there's funding to build an airport in a particular country, that might go on for 5 or 6 years, and then that job might disappear because the airport's been built and the project is over. It's an important distinction to understand in terms of stability of employment, because as we're going to go on later, contracts are not open-ended typically in international organizations, and it's important to understand core and non-core. And if you're at an interview and you get to that stage of the interview where the panel is asking you, do you have any questions for us? And if you say, hey, I just wanted to know if is this a regular budget funded post or a project funded post? That kind of shows that you know what you're talking about, and it's an interesting question that will get the panel's attention. In terms of categories, there's typically 2 types of categories of role in public international organizations. There's what's often known as professional or managerial and professional roles, and these are internationally recruited, and they're on the kind of senior side of the hierarchy. And then there are administrative positions, such as administrative assistant or chauffeur, so on and so forth, that are more locally recruited, and those are reserved for nationals of those countries. So look out for that category, because if you're applying to administrative assistant position in Canada and you're not Canadian, you're not eligible for that role typically. You're looking to, if you want to apply for administrative work, which is available in international organizations, that will be in your own country. But if you're looking for the managerial and professional roles, those are internationally recruited and open to everybody. Consultants, individual contractors, and interns, you're going to hear those terms bandied around. I'm sure you know what interns mean, but consultants and individual contractors, it's a kind of non-staff modality. These can be internationally recruited, and they're interesting, especially to get your first couple of years of experience. So do look at consultancies, even though they're not very stable. Now, looking at contracts. Nowadays, in the 21st century, even though it's a civil service, most international civil service positions are the subject of fixed-term contracts, where you'll get a contract for 2 years or 3 years at a time, and then it's going to be renewed if there's funding available. Indefinite contracts, so also known as permanent or continuing, are increasingly becoming rare, but they do exist. But what I'm here to tell you is that the funding source, this first line, this first column here about budget, that is far more important for job security than contract length. Because if you are on a fixed term contract, but your funding for that contract is funded from the core budget of the organization, that will typically be renewed and renewed and renewed, and you can expect much greater job security than project funded roles, which you know that are going to end when the project ends. So I'm here to tell you, don't worry too much when you see a fixed term position. If it's in the regular budget, it's very likely to be renewed. And international organizations typically can't not renew something without a reason. They would have to not renew for lack of funding or for bad performance or misconduct. And you're not going to do any misconduct, and you're not going to perform badly. I know you guys are great. Going back to rewards, as I said, salaries are pretty generous. Kind of on par, like I said, with but that you can find in typically the wealthiest of the member states. It's a little bit lower than the top global private firms, but not far away. And the salaries are the same no matter where you come from. So it doesn't matter that you might be from a country where the salary scales are a bit more humble. When you join an international organization on an internationally recruited post, you're making the same as somebody from maybe a wealthier country. There's no discrimination there. The benefits, such as pension, medical, and leave, are typically the most generous in the employment market. So leave of 6 weeks a year is not unheard of. Home leave, where every couple of years the organization sends you back to your country so that you can reintegrate back into your culture after being away for a long time. That's not unheard of either. Good pension benefits, good private medical benefits. They are a common feature of international organization reward programs. Now, bonuses, on the other hand, they do not play a significant role. So you're not really going to expect to get bonuses from public organizations. That's more kind of the private field and let's say private banking or finance, where you'll find those kinds of things. In terms of progression, once you're in, that's probably not the last interview you're gonna take, because progression in public international organizations is more about strict procurement, meaning that you might come in at a certain level, and then to get up to the next level, you may have to apply even though you're within your own organization, and compete with persons either inside the organization or outside for your next step up, your next promotion. So promotions are not typically automatic like they might be in private companies, but they would also be competitive once you're in. Any questions, Tiffany, on this one, or should I move on to next slide?
No questions.
All right.
Thank you.
Wonderful. I get asked sometimes, is being an international civil servant, working in international organization, is it a career? And I think it depends on how you look at it. So some people that says yes, some people says no, and some people say it depends. I'm one of the people that say it depends, but here are some of the reasons. So yes, it is a career because the international civil service was conceived of as a career when it started in the 1920s with the League of Nations. And international civil service does require particular skill sets. So for example, working in multicultural environments is something that you're going to see in every international organization. So even in international organizations with 2 or 3 member countries, you've got persons from those member countries coming together, working towards a common good. And you can have cultural misunderstandings, linguistic misunderstandings. It's about how you handle those. And working in a multicultural setting is something that's a particular skill that you would need. It's also uncommon for persons who join the international civil service to then leave it. And that indicates that it could be a career, right? That's not a hard and fast rule, but I think the conditions of service are pretty good and they're pretty attractive. And the mandate, the work that you do every day is compelling. And I think that's why people stay. Some people say that international civil service is not a career. What they'll say is, well, my function is a career. I'm a banker, I'm a lawyer, I'm a human resources officer, and I can do that whether I'm in the international civil service or outside. And I would tend to agree with that too. I mean, I've come in and out. I went to the private sector for a while because I wanted to get that experience, and I went back to the international civil service. So it is possible to build your career and conceive of it that way. Others will say, well, even if civil servant might be a career, back home where I'm from, international civil servant is not. And the reason people would say that is because civil service jobs back in government, in national governments, is typically tenured and not the subject of fixed term contracts and really kind of the traditional civil service where you're there for life. And the international civil service is a little bit unlike that because of the predominance of fixed term contracts. It's also some place that persons tend to end up in the late 20s, early 30s is the average age of entry. So and even if it's not unheard of persons in the 40s transitioning into the international civil service. So in that sense, some people might not say it's a career. And there's those that say it depends. I'm one of those. Some functions are found in every international organization, right? If you're an accountant, if you're a human resources officer, if you're a lawyer, every international organization, doesn't matter what it does, they look for those functions because they need those functions to operate. Whereas on the other hand, if you're in a very specific role, like you're an analytical chemist, right? There's only a few international organizations that have that mandate. One of them I served at is called the Organization for the Prohibition of Chemical Weapons. We would send chemists anywhere in the world to inspect chemical facilities to make sure that they weren't being used for malign reasons. If you're a marine biologist, well, you've heard of the International Seabed Authority in Kingston, Jamaica. That's probably a place for marine biologists, as is the United Nations Environment Programme, but probably not many more other international organizations. So ultimately, like your career is what you make it. Some persons spend their entire careers in the international civil service. Some people spend the second half, and some people come in and out.
Thank you.
So go ahead, Tiffany.
Thank you, Philip, for sharing the difference between the careers and it depends and maybe who knows. I have a question for you.
Sure.
With everything that you've just explained in today's environment, can you mention some of the emerging trends in the international civil service?
Absolutely. Thanks, Tiffany. That's a great question. Some of the emerging trends in international civil service jobs, some of them reflect a lot of what's happening in the outside world. So you're in my field of human resources, right? You will see that there's a lot of demand for data analytics and for data analytics qualifications, persons who can visualize large complex sets of data to tell a story, to convince our leaders that, this particular HR initiative is important and this one isn't. So a lot of these trends will reflect the wider industry that you're working in, the wider function that you're in, and you would already know about those. So it's not going to be if you're following the trends in your chosen career path, I am here to tell you that will be valuable for when you transition over to the international civil service because it's not that different, right? Typically, another thing that's happening in the international civil service that might be a bit more specific is that some organizations are saying, well, we want rotation. We want a rotation policy. And that means that they expect that their staff members are not going to sit and work in one place in the world for all of their careers, but every couple of years, they're going to be expected to move. So you might spend a couple of years in New York City, then you might move to Bangkok, Thailand, then you might move to Geneva, Switzerland, and you might be rotated in that way. Not all organizations do that, so it's really a case of if that's something that is of interest to you, but it is definitely a very rewarding way, to be paid to see the world while doing special things. So it is something to consider. So those are some of the trends, both common to industries and specific to public international organizations.
Thank you so much, Philip, for explaining that.
All right. I'm going to kind of finish off before we go to Q&As about just some insider tips for entering the international civil service. And some of these are marked with a star as an asterisk. So some of these only apply to if you're looking to work internationally, meaning as an international hire. So some of these don't apply if you're looking to work for international organizations in your home country, but some of them are more targeted towards international recruited roles. So your qualifications, they do matter, meaning that if you see a vacancy announcement is asking you for a degree in this specific subject, and you don't have one, or it says a degree in this specific subject or related, and you don't have one in a related area, it's probably not worth spending your time applying to that organization, to that particular application, because there's going to be a lot of applicants who are super qualified, and that's the ones that the human resources departments are going to take. So do make sure you look at that your qualifications are a fit to what's being asked of the role. With an asterisk for internationally recruited roles, do consider getting your master's, because although a lot of organizations, they do hire persons with bachelors, they'll typically or very often say that bachelor's required, master's desirable. Well, guess what? When you get 1,000 applications, one of the first things that HR does to cut down that 1,000 applications to a long list that's reasonable is to take the candidates with master's degrees. And it may also take candidates with master's degrees who are of underrepresented genders or nationalities, and that might be a way that you might make the next selection round without your master's degree. But to the extent that it's possible, I know it's expensive, I know it's time consuming, I do consider getting a master's. I don't think that you need a master's degree from a particularly high-flying elite kind of northern institution. That's not really what it's about, because international organizations recognize all the qualifications in all of their member states. So even getting a master's in your own country or getting an online master's like I recently did, I went through half of my career without a master's, and I wish I had done it earlier, is an option. And I would urge those of you considering internationally recruited jobs to look at that. Experience matters even more, right? Typically, like I said, you're going to be looking to enter the international civil service, not straight out of university, although it sometimes happens, but typically you're going to be a little bit further down the line. And it's really important to kind of look at the roles that are out there now, see what experience requirements are, and try to get those, whether in the non-governmental space in your country, whether in government work, whether in private work, if it's relevant, and try to build your career towards getting the experience that HR officers like myself and Tiffany, we can tick a box and say, yeah, this person meets the criteria, let's move them to the next stage. The distinction between categories of staff is real. So I earlier made this distinction between administrative level work, which is sometimes known as general service positions or administrative professional positions, and then the professional roles, also known as managerial and professional roles. And they are two separate career paths. While it does happen that persons might join in the administrative category and then work their way up and work their way to the professional one. That's not typically how it's structured, and that's the exception rather than the rule. So I would caution against the perception, oh, I'm just going to join this and this organization, I'm going to get on the bottom floor, I'm going to work my way up, because administrative work and MPS work is not always that similar. So you should be targeting the junior professional roles if you want to go into international recruited work. They are there for persons who have even 2 years of experience, sometimes no years of experience, but do look for that distinction, because the distinction really is real in international organizations. You may wish, if you're looking for internationally recruited work, you may, as an alternative, look at consultancies, and that's a way to build up your experience, taking short-term consultancies, assuming you have the necessary expertise, rather than being an administrative assistant if you want international recruited work. So there's nothing wrong with being an administrative assistant. That's great if you want to stay in your home country. But if you're looking for international recruited work, it's best that you build up your CV with things like consultancies and roles in other organizations that are more similar to where you want to end up. Another tip that I have for you is that limiting yourself geographically limits your career progression in international organizations, right? When I was super young, before I was married, before I had children, I would go anywhere in the world. I would apply to every place in the world, even if it was a little dangerous. It might have been a post-conflict zone. It might have been an active conflict zone. I was willing to go anywhere. As I get older, I don't want to be apart from my wife when I was married. So I wouldn't go necessarily think twice before applying to what's called non-family duty stations, because I want to be with my family. Now that I have a child, it's even more the case. I want to settle down and be in a place where I want my child to grow. But limiting yourself geographically, it does cut out your options. So do think about that. Even if your dream is to be in New York City for a while, maybe the path to New York City might be through London, or it might be through Bogota, Colombia, or wherever it is that you see a role that might fit your skill set, because your next posting might be to New York City, or right now it might be somewhere else. I do want to say that a regional strategy is feasible. If you say to yourself, well, I don't want to go too far out. I got, my family, I need to have my family close. I need to be close back home. Then there are sufficient international organizations within our Caribbean region where you could pursue kind of a regional application strategy. And that I've seen colleagues that have done that very successfully. But if you want internationally recruited work and you're just limiting yourself to 1 or 2 countries, your chances of success are going to be very severely diminished. Your nationality matters for international civil service recruitment. You've already heard me talking about, well, you can only apply to places where your country of nationality is a member of international organizations to which your country of nationality is a member, and that's true. So you need to have a nationality. Most people have a nationality, but sometimes you might be eligible for a second one. So you might have 2 parents from 2 different countries, like me. I'm Polish, I'm British, and I'm Belgian. So sometimes I can apply to roles representing any of these 3 nationalities. Because once you're in, you're not a representative of that country. I'm not at my job to represent the UK, right? I'm actually supposed to be independent of the UK because I'm an independent civil servant. But having more than 1 nationality can sometimes be helpful, and consider it if that's something that you might want to do. The last thing is practice. Practice applying, even apply to roles, even if you don't think it's right for you to move at this time, and you see that role that really fits your skill set, apply to it, because it could be a networking opportunity. You're going to meet a number of panelists at the interview, and even if you don't make it, or if it's not right for you and you have to decline it, you've met some people that can give you feedback, and that you can link with on LinkedIn and ask questions or get guidance. Like, people in this space tend to be very, very helpful and tend to be very supportive of applicants, right? So do practice applying. Another reason to practice applying and getting through to interviews is that you're going to be practicing a type of interviewing called competency-based interviewing. And competency-based interviewing is a very special interview skill that most public international organizations engage in which they tell you about, they ask you to tell stories based on your previous experience. For example, tell me about a time where you encountered a difficult situation with a colleague. And you're going to have to recount a situation like that you encountered with quite a lot of specificity, because then the panel is going to see, okay, well, if they handled it that way in the past, and they handled it well, it's likely that they're going to apply that kind of thinking and apply that kind of strategies to when they join us. So competency-based interviewing, it could be very, very different to the types of interviews you might have had in the private sector in your country, or even in NGOs or in other employers. So do look up competency-based interviewing techniques. We'll send a few links afterwards to some of my favorite webinars where persons who are way more experienced than me, recruitment specialists, tell you like how real strategies about competency-based interviewing, how to anticipate what kind of questions you might get by researching the international organizations and its competencies, its core values, looking at the job description for clues. I've tried some of those strategies and I really was able to predict with quite a high level of confidence some of the questions that I might ask, and therefore I was able to prepare for those questions. So do practice, even if you don't think it's right for you, because you can always turn a role down if you don't want it. And 9 times out of 10, I'm probably not going to get it, but the practice was good along the way. And finally, let me please emphasize that the key to job security is the funding, not the contract length. So if you're going to say, well, I'm not going to join an international organization unless they give me an indefinite contract from the get-go, then that's unrealistic. You're probably going to spend some time on fixed-term contracts. And that's not a bad thing, especially if they're funded from the regular budget or the core budget. So you can ask about that at interview, but don't be turned away by these fixed-term jobs because they can be very successive and very stable, despite being only for a limited period in time. So that concludes my presentation. And I will ask Bridge Excellence to send those of you who have registered some additional information. Like I mentioned, some of my favorite webinars containing deep dives into the application and into interview processes. I also want to say that I do offer mentoring to Caribbean nationals and persons who wanting to enter the international civil service. That's completely free of charge. I don't charge anything for that. So please do feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn. My name is pretty unique, so there's not many Filip Borkowy's on LinkedIn. Please add me. I will accept you, and then we will can start the conversation. So I do hope this has been helpful. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them. And thank you so much. Thank you so much for listening to me for almost an hour.
Thank you, Philip. If there is anyone that may have additional questions to what they would have submitted when they registered, feel free to raise your hand or type it in the chat. Philip is here to share his knowledge with us. So I recommend that we take advantage of it. We'll give you a couple seconds if you have anything to ask or if you have any suggestions or any other queries that may come to mind. Now is the time to share those questions right now.
I'm actually seeing one in the chat, Tiffany. Can you see it too?
Yes, feel free to go ahead.
Okay, so Nisha is asking typically what are the minimal qualifications required, and are all contract based or permanent? Right. So minimal qualifications required. Do have a look. Go to some of the websites that I've shown you. Go to the United Nations Secretariat website, for example, and pull up a role, and you'll see that the minimum requirements typically relate to the job that's being done. So if you want to be an economist, it's an economics degree. If you want to be a lawyer, it's a law degree. If it's program management, it might be something wider like business administration, international development, international relations, so on and so forth. Then the jobs are graded. So there's kind of steps along the way. You might start off as a junior or an analyst, move up to an associate, an officer, different terms, but these roles may have grades attached to them where, for example, P1 in the United Nations is the entry-level grade, whereas P5 is the senior officer grade, D1 is the director grade, and you can just tell from the numbering system after having a look at those. And then typically, those would require increasing levels of responsibility in your previous roles and additional years of experience. So I think for the P3 grade in the United Nations, which is the most common professional grade, you typically need about 5 years of experience plus a master's degree or 7 years with a bachelor's degree. But there'll be persons applying to that which will have 10, 11, 12 years, right? So the minimum requirements are pretty well written out there in the vacancy announcements. Now, as to whether jobs are contract-based or permanent. Let me say it again. Most roles in the international civil service are contract-based, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. They can be very, very stable. You could have fixed-term contracts that get renewed and renewed and renewed if the funding source is stable and if your performance is good. You typically cannot be told that at the expiry of your contract that thank you very much, we're not going to renew your contract, and they don't tell you why. They typically have to do it for either lack of funding, lack of performance, or lack of discipline. And these last two are not going to apply to you. So as long as the funding is stable, fixed-term contracts can be a way to build a very rewarding career in the international civil service. So I encourage all of us, especially those of us from English-speaking Caribbean countries where, typically after a year you're permanent back home. That's not how it's going to happen in international civil service, but the trade-off is worth it, is really, really worth it. I'm here to tell you that now. I didn't receive my first indefinite appointment until last year. I'm 44 years old, so it did take me 18 years, but I was employed almost continuously along the way. So I wouldn't place too much emphasis on seeking out a permanent job because the rewards packages are worth considering fixed term employment.
I hope that answered your question, Nisha. If you have any follow-up questions, you can type it in the chat or you can come off mic to ask them. We have two questions in the question and answer section. I'll read them for you, Philip.
Sure, thank you.
Are there internships at these international organizations specifically for college students, or are they postgrad or entry level only?
Yeah, thank you. Okay, so yes, internships, absolutely. Internships at my employer have just launched in the summer months, but some internship programs are rolling, meaning that you can apply to them a year round. And you might be able to do that because you've just graduated. Internships are typically open to those who are at university or who have recently graduated from university. Some internship programs are only at the master's level or those who just recently graduated, but a lot are at bachelor's level, and you could do it, for example, in the first summer after graduating. And internships are a really, really good way of getting a flavor of what it's about. A number of internships are paid. I met Paulette, the founder of Bridge Excellence, in Rome, Italy, because the internship that I was doing was paid. And it allowed me to pay my rent, to move to another country, and to experience something else. So a number of international organizations do offer paid internships. The Caribbean Development Bank is one. The United Nations World Food Programme is another. The World Intellectual Property Organization is another. The International Labour Organization is another. And I will endeavor to send a list of public international organizations of which I know offer paid internships, along with all the other information that I've committed to providing. I don't know them all, but I know about some of them. And if you can get an internship and you qualify for an internship, so typically you're a student or just graduated, then it's an excellent way to get some experience.
Thank you so much, Philip. We have a few questions coming in. Another one I'm seeing here is, do these organizations do a background check? If yes, what are they looking for?
Absolutely, they do a background check because their reputation depends on what their staff do and don't do. Typically, the human resources budget is one of the largest budgets of the organization because you're typically paying people to provide technical assistance, to be there on the ground, to engage in certain activities. And yeah, the people of an international organization represent it. And so, yes, background checks do tend to happen. You will be asked during the application whether you have a criminal record, whether you were under investigation in any previous role that you might have held. And sometimes they just ask for the outcome of that investigation rather than whether you were investigated. Upon accepting an offer, there may be something called the social media scrub, where they might look at your social media handles and what you've been posting, what you're about, what positions that you might take and if they might be incompatible with that of the organization. So here we'd be looking for things that, like as I said, international organizations typically are multicultural workplaces, and if you've expressed views that might indicate that you're not going to be amenable to working in a multicultural environment, that might be a red flag, and so on and so forth. So background checks do happen. Reference checks also do happen, but it's typically nothing to be too worried about.
Okay, we have two more questions. The penultimate one is there a minimum or maximum age requirement? I'm thinking that they're referring to job applications.
Yes, yes, great question. So, yes, international organizations, unlike many employers, they do have a maximum age limit. At the organization I work at, it's 67. That's called the mandatory age of retirement. I think in most United Nations organizations, it's about 65, and they would typically, let's say that the role that's being advertised is for a fixed term contract of 2 years, let's say. If you're going to hit the mandatory age of retirement within that 2-year window that you applied, then typically you're not going to be considered if you're very close to mandatory age of retirement. But apart from that, there's no other limitation, and they would be looking at just the experience that you have and whether you meet the minimum criteria and the type of experience, or whether it's applicable to the job that you're applying for. As I said, very the average age of entry into the international civil service is early 30s, and it's not uncommon for persons to be moving in their 40s. So if you're thinking of a career pivot, that's actually very normal, assuming that you've gained relevant experience. So for example, if you're in IT and you've been an IT consultant working in your home country for many years and you want to pivot into the international civil service, that's a perfectly normal career path to do in your 40s.
Thank you, Philip. We have
Right.
one last question. And the question is, are there any opportunities for remote positions?
Thank you. Yes. So yes, there are. I think I showed you at the beginning when I showed you my map of where I've been around the world, is that two of my roles were remote. Quite early on in my career, I had the opportunity to serve anywhere I wanted for the International Trade Center. So anywhere I wanted, I chose to live in St. Martin in the Northeast Caribbean. And I was working from St. Martin. And then later, I worked in Barbados for the World Food Programme. Although it had an office in Barbados, I was working for the headquarters and for a team in HQ. So all my colleagues were online, and I was doing that online. How do you get these remote opportunities? Well, you will see particularly things called consultancies, remote consultancies, advertised online um, at the careers websites of the various international organizations. And those are consultancies to which you can apply to, and which you can do. Another way is, once you may have worked for an organization in a particular location and you've done some networking and you've met some colleagues, and you might say, well, I don't think I want to renew again for another contract to work in Haiti, for example, or to work in Italy or somewhere that's further away. And if you've made the right impression and the job is possible to do that job remotely, well, they may offer you that some work remotely, or you might hear from another team that's offering remote work. So even if your dream is to end up doing 100% remote work, a way to increase your chances of getting all the remote positions that might be available out there is to do some in-person work for a time and build up a network and show your expertise, and then your name gets passed around, and you're able to potentially gain some more opportunities in the remote field.
Thank you so much, Philip. I'm not seeing any more questions. However, I will open the floor again to anyone who maybe wants to raise anything, answer any other questions, answer any follow-up questions. Now is your last chance to do so. In the meantime, we're going to be sharing the survey again. It's very short. It's on behalf of Bridge Excellence International. It's just to get some information from you so that they can better cater their webinar series or any programs that they will be willing to offer in the future. And there are no more questions, Philip. I want to take this time to thank Miss Paulette Lewis, the founder and owner of Bridge Excellence International, for providing this platform for Philip and myself to share such insightful knowledge and information and tips and ins and outs in the international civil service with you guys. I also want to thank Philip for giving us his experience or his journey along the way in the international civil service. And like he mentioned before, he also offers mentorship for Caribbean nationals if you're interested based on the outcome of this webinar. If it's been interesting to you, you can reach out to him and he'll be able to give you some free mentoring sessions. We also want to thank Mickey and Tesman for providing our technical support in the background. And we're going to share the video that we watched early on with you guys again. And don't leave us yet. We would like to take a photo with everyone. So we're going to watch the video first. And if you could turn on your cameras so we can all take a photo before we leave, that would be really great. Over to you, Tesman. We're not hearing Tesman.
No sound. No sound.
Okay, well, Tesman works on getting the audio for the video. We just want to mention that Bridge Excellence International will be giving away some prizes. And I'll leave that for Paulette to explain how you can be eligible to win a prize.
Okay. So, Tiffany, I thought we had agreed on that, but let's see how we can figure this out. Well, first of all, the whole idea is what did you learn? And it was quite a lot that was shared this afternoon. I noticed that the first question that was asked by Philip, Brianna, is she still on? She was able to answer that it was the International Seabed Authority. We're really offering 3 free 1 hour coaching sessions. And is Brianna still there or is she
I'm
gone?
not
Because
seeing her.
she's not
She's
there.
left, yes.
Okay, she's left. Okay, so perhaps Philip, you could just ask us a couple of questions, 3 questions out of the information that you shared, and it could be anything. Um, as a former international HR officer, I could ask you one related to how you apply for a job in the what would be, and I'm just making it very free, what are two um, pointers you should look at carefully when you're applying for a job in the international setting? Anyone in the chat? You're free to either put your answer in the chat, or you could just open your video and answer.
So we have a response from Leah and Nisha. Leah says job description and requirements, and Nisha says the qualifications and nationality requirement. So you have two.
Yes. All right. So we have two individuals. Philip, can we come up with a more difficult question?
Absolutely. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Sorry?
Can
Yes.
everybody hear me?
Yes.
Yes, I can hear
Okay.
you. Yeah.
I want you guys to type in the chat 3 international organizations beginning with the letter I. And the first person to do that, you could do the acronyms, you don't have to do the whole thing. Begin with letter I will win the next prize. So 3 international organizations beginning with the letter I. One of them is in Jamaica, huh? For everyone who who remembers.
Anyone?
Should we give another hint?
Usually I stands for international. There's another hint.
Oh, there you go. You have some responses.
Okay, so who
Excellent.
was that? Leah.
Leah said IDB, ITU, ICC, so Inter-American Development Bank, International Telecommunications Union, International Criminal Court. That is correct.
Yes.
But Nisha already won a prize, right? So just in
Yes.
case, ILO, International Labour Organization, Inter-American Development Bank again, and the
Yeah.
International Monetary Fund. Leah, you are also correct.
What
So
was Leah's surname?
Leah Howell.
Oh,
Howell. Okay. So that was our second prize. Can we do one more?
Another question or this?
that was
Just
our
one.
third.
Yes, one more question.
All right. Let's see. Okay. Who remembers where I currently work? If you can name that international organization, that will be the prize winner.
That's easy.
Bit of self-promotion there. Easy for you. CDB, Sonia Knight. Congrats.
Sonia who?
Sonia Knight.
Okay.
And Paulette is one of my mentors. Paulette is an amazing resource, and you'll have a lot out of these coaching sessions. I'll tell you that.
Thank you, Philip. And I must say yourself, I have not yet added my thank you to all of you. So who was the first person in the chat when I asked that first question?
So we have Leah Howell and Nisha Thompson who answered the first question. They
And
also
Nisha
answered Nisha Thompson.
Thompson. Okay. All right. So Leah has, so we have really 3 persons, Nisha, Leah, and Sonia Knight. So we'll be in touch with you. And thank you very much for participating. I would just like to add my thank you, especially to Philip and Tiffany, for your participation, for doing so much work to get this seminar together, because most of it had to do with what Philip presented, and we know it was quite a lot of work. I'd also like to say thank you to Tesmon and Michaela, who really did a great job getting all of this together. And for those of you who are looking for people to produce videos and to get your seminars together, you could reach out to Avantech Electronic Solutions. They are a team, wife and husband, and they have really done a good job. I'd like to thank you so much for your participation. And I think Tesman is going to spend a couple minutes to show you once more what Bridge Excellence does. And please, it's not only Philip who can mentor you, we also provide some services, coaching, and we will also help to prepare you. But this would be paid service, of course, to prepare you for work in the international setting. So I thank you very much, and over to you, Tesmon.
Our mission: to make you a future-forward leader. Our aim: to be your catalyst for transformation. We value people first. The success of any business depends on how well positioned the employees are. We value excellence. Excellence in delivering exceptional quality, going above and beyond to exceed your expectations. By leveraging our trusted partnerships and making investments in people like you. Investments in our range of services like coaching and personality assessments to help with your job, relationships, enhancing your career. Also, human resources advisory work, including staff engagement, leadership, and learning development. Make that step today towards your future for tomorrow and reach out to our team. We will be happy to show you the Bridge Excellence way.
Okay, thank you so much. Are you willing to turn on your video so we can all have a photo together?
Don't be shy.
I'm sure you're all looking great. We have 22 people still online. We had 28. 22 of you are still there. Would you please turn on your cameras, please? Your videos.
They're saying the function is not
Okay.
available on their phones.
Yes.
Tesmon?
I am looking to see if I can make that possible.
Okay.
Just give us a few minutes. We'll have it started soon.
Okay,
We
so
hope you
I'm
enjoyed
going to
the
send an
session.
invitation
Mhm.
to our participants to be promoted to
Sorry?
a panelist. Just accept it, please.
So you're making everybody panelists now.
Yes,
Okay.
that's the only way to allow them to be able to open their cameras. As you come on, just open your camera.
Okay. Hi, Janet. Some people are gone. Hi, Nisha. Hi, is that Nara or Nira? Hi, Nisha.
Nice to see your faces.
Hi, Leah. Yes, it's nice to see the faces. Shada, let's see you. I've had some interaction with Shade. I'm not sure if it's Shada or Shada. Naira, is that the correct pronunciation? Yes?
Yeah, it's
Great.
Nayara. Yes.
Gosh, you look great. Anybody else?
I think that is it.
Ifatoya, is that correct? You know, I'm too old for these pronunciations these days. It's a different world with the names. Anybody else? David, Davia, you can't turn on your camera. Okay. Who is
Just
this?
accept the promotion to panelists, please. For those of you who still
Our
not able to turn
expert
your
is saying that
cameras,
you
just
just need
accept
to
the invitation.
accept. You've been invited to switch to panelist, and that will allow you to show up. How is this name pronounced? Nneka? How is your name pronounced? Nika?
Eniko.
Anika, excuse me. Okay, who else? Shema, Ifatoya, or it's Ifatoya. I don't know.
Ifatoya.
Sorry?
Ifatoya.
Ifatoya. Okay, nice meeting you.
And Samika,
Anybody else showing up?
Samika, go ahead and accept the promotion so I can put you all on screen. Fitzroy, James, go ahead and accept. So only Fitzroy, Naveda, and Samika are left. Naveda, if you can hear me, go ahead and accept the promotion to panelist. Samika, if you can hear me, go ahead.
Yeah, it's very hard.
Everybody
Your voice is very low, Tesmond.
or the camera. Okay.
So he's saying, please accept the invitation,
As the panelist.
which
Tasman, you
converts.
have to practice what you preach, man. You have to practice what you preach.
Yes.
Okay.
Mickey too.
All right. So do we take it that nobody else is coming on? Tesmond,
I think we can.
would you like to show your face?
Oh yes, I'm trying.
Yeah. So I don't know. We asked Mickey to take the
I'm trying, but it's
Uh,
not happening.
It's not?
I'm trying. Not sure what's going on, but I'm trying. Is this everyone?
It looks that way.
It
The
looks
other
like that.
persons aren't able to turn their cameras on, so
Oh,
Mm.
yes.
all
So
right.
that's everyone.
Desmond,
Taylor,
I'm not. Yes.
just click on your camera and switch from OBS camera to whatever else is there.
Oh, integrated webcam.
Yes, switch to that. Okay, I'm on now.
Okay.
Let me add everybody to the spot.
So candid camera cheese. What happened?
There I am.
Hold
They all
on.
disappeared. What happened?
No, just hang on. Just hang on.
Let us know when we can put on our best smiles.
Yes.
Desmond, you will be taking the picture or
Yes, I have the try.
No, you can't take the picture because then
hold on. All right,
The
everybody.
thing is that this particular view of webinar is different, so it's kind of different to get everyone on the screen. In the other views, I could just put on gallery and everybody would be visible, but that is not possible here. So I'll be trying to find a workaround, guys.
All right, everybody just smile and freeze. I'm gonna take a snippet.
All right.
All right, smile and freeze. Let's see if this works.
There we go.
All right, let's see.
okay.
Hold on.
Yes, everybody is represented. Okay, good.
Well, so thank you very much for coming. And I'm sure I'll be in touch with you for different, because we have different things that we're doing and we like to share with you're now become family. So we will be in touch with you. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye from
Bye.
Jamaica.
Thank you.
Bye bye, everyone.
Bye.
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 Goodbye. Yeah.
Thanks for coming. Bye.
Thanks for having us.
Okay. Philip is gone. Tiffany, we'll be in touch. Thank you again for
You're
doing
welcome.
so much work.
That's fine.
Okay.
Have a good evening, everybody.
Yes. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Same to you.
Tesmon, you need some rest. Oh my goodness.
Most definitely.
Quick question for you, Miss. I'm not sure if it's Miss or Mistress Paulette Lewis.
It's
So
Miss
if I'd like,
Lewis,
it's
Miss.
Miss Lewis. Thank you for that. So I'd like to know if I'd like to connect with you on LinkedIn. Would I just search for Paulette Lewis and I'd find you easily there?
Yes.
Okay.
I am
Thank you.
Paulette Lewis on LinkedIn.
Amazing. Thank
Mhm.
you. Thanks to
Right.
the entire team
But
who made
then
this
if
possible.
Davia, if you're looking for service, we have a website, Bridge Excellence International, and there are options there for, whether you wanted to. There are about 3 different ways you can connect with us through
Mhm.
Bridge Excellence. Okay?
Okay. I will.
All
I'll
right.
utilize those links now. Thanks much.
Thank you. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm gonna end the webinar now.
Right.
Thank you, everyone.